Hello and welcome to another video where we discuss all the wonderful things that are Detroit sports. And this is a great, great, great time to be a fan of Detroit sports because the Lions are 3-1. They look about as dominant as any team in the NFL, coming off of a great win against the Seattle Seahawks, the previously undefeated Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football, where the entire nation got to see the Lions just play some of their best football, their best game of the year so far. And I know I had mentioned at times that Jared Goff hadn't looked quite like his old self in the first few games this year, although he wasn't exactly bad. He had some turnovers and some mistakes that really did make it seem like there were going to be some problems with him, but he has been much better. He was literally perfect. Not only did he not throw an incompletion, but he even caught a touchdown. He just was great. And this team as a whole has really been impressive, really exciting. And I think that was the game where everybody was able to look and see, okay, yeah, no, this is a talented group. This is the team that we thought could win the Super Bowl this year. And I know the defense wasn't as strong in this game as they had been in games past, but they still were all right in the first half. The run defense did a decent job of slowing down Kenneth Walker. He did eventually break out in the second half, but early on, though, it looked good defensively, and throughout the entire game, it just looked great. This team is really clicking and firing on all cylinders, and I am just thrilled with how things are working out for the Lions. 3-1 going into the bye week, and it's a much needed bye week. It's not something I always want to take place early on in the year, but I think considering some of the injuries they've been dealing with and just how many injuries there are in the league right now, an absurd amount, that it's nice to get that little bit of rest and allow them to recoup and get into the swing of things before they go on a really long stretch. I mean, that's going to be it for buys. They got to keep going every week for the rest of the year, and they'll be facing Dallas and Minnesota back to back. Neither one will be easy, but I think both are winnable games. And it's just it's a bummer that we're not going to be able to see the Lions for a couple of weeks, but to have that great Monday night game before that is really nice. And not only was Goff great, the running game is unbelievable. And I know that we talk about the Lions running game, often, just how this is a run for his team or how dominant of a duo they have, the best running duo in the league, but they just keep getting better and better. Both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs have these great performances. It seems like just each week, both of them are incredible. It's never been a case where, 1 week Gibbs goes off and 1 week Montgomery goes off. They both have different roles, but they both are really productive and help this team. And we've been at the point where we haven't seen too much consistency from the receivers. By which I mean not from all of them. Amon-Ra St. Brown for the most part has been really good, but he had an off week, and Jameson Williams has been really good, but certain weeks he's had more receptions than others, although he's been pretty nice throughout. I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining, just more pointing out that there's sometimes there are imbalances with some of these players. Sam Laporta, honestly, he's the big one right now, where he doesn't look like he's 100% healthy, and he hasn't been as involved in the offense as he was last year. But even with that, even where you're not always sure which receiver is going to step up or how the passing game is going to look, the running game is good every single time. And both running backs have been incredible. And they didn't just beat the Seahawks, who were undefeated and who were one of the dominant teams of the league. I mean, one of the few remaining undefeated teams entering this past weekend. But the Lions didn't just beat them; they beat them favorably. They beat them by multiple scores. They were in control the whole game, and it was similar to the Arizona game, where you can say, "Oh, well, they weren't quite as sharp in one area in the second half." Or the second half of the Cardinals game, they didn't score, or in the second half of the Seahawks game, the defense wasn't as sharp, but they took 14-point leads in the second quarter of each game and held on to the leads the entire time in the second half. Like, the only nitpick you can really have about the Lions as a whole the last 2 weeks is just, they're taking these big leads and they're winning by multiple scores, but they're not putting the other team away as fast as I'd like. I think that there are some people who look at it as, well, it would be nice if they were the game was over by the time the fourth quarter started, and I wouldn't have to have this, anxiety late in the game. But it's still a win, and I was a little nervous at the end that okay, well, maybe possibly something will happen with Seattle. Maybe they score a touchdown and get the onside kick recovery and do something. But it's stuff that's not likely to happen. Logically that they're probably going to lose. Detroit just has looked like the better team in each of the last 2 weeks, and they're 3-1 right now, and they're about as tough as any team in the NFC or really in the NFL. So it's been great to see that. And again, it is a bummer that we're not going to be able to watch the Lions for 2 weeks. But in the meantime, we have the actual talk of Detroit, the most discussed team in the city, the team that is about as beloved nationally as any team right now, just because of the incredibly insane and absurd run they've been on, which now includes knocking out the team that's been to the ALCS the last 7 years in the Astros. The Detroit Tigers are the team in baseball right now, or at least they're the story. They're the likable team. They're the team that everybody's watching, and they're the team where it makes sense that they're giving you some anxiety late in these games, because they definitely did both in game 1 and game 2 of the ALDS, or I'm sorry, the AL wildcard round leading up to their trip to the ALDS, but they pulled it off, and this is just, it's hard to say anything new about this team because they've had so much discussion of just what an absurd run they've been on, how they've been red hot despite seemingly being out of it, by early August, and then by mid to late August, then things really started to change and turn around for them. And they've just been on this incredible run. They're the hottest team in baseball. They're really young, just a lot of rookies on this team, but they keep finding ways to win. And this is one of those teams that you love seeing in baseball, because I can't think of a team that's been this far out of it only to come back and stay relevant and go into the playoffs and advance in the playoffs. I can't think of another team in sports that's been like this in my lifetime. I know other teams that have done that, where they've, they'll make the moves and they'll come back a little bit, and, they'll be a fun team that nobody really saw coming. But to be this far out of it and to advance as far as they have, you don't see that a lot. But in baseball, you do every once in a while. And sometimes that team that gets hot late can go on a deep run. And after watching them in this Astros series, I mean, it's clear that this is a team that really believes in themselves and their abilities, because for them to go down by a run late in game 2 when the offense wasn't really clicking early on, and they only had the one run and they were holding on to this slight lead and just hoping to shut out the Astros. But then Andy Ibanez is a specialist with the bases loaded, guy who, can't hit everybody, but he has his specialties, and he was put in the right spot by AJ Hinch, and he gets a bases clearing triple in order to take the lead. And at that point, it was clear that this game was over and that the Tigers were winning it. And it's, a week ago was my last video, and I was talking about how exciting it was to watch the Tigers, and what a great team they've been, what a great story they've been, how fun it was going to a game on Wednesday. And it's only gotten better since, because I was at the game again Friday where they clinched the playoff berth, and it's one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in sports, watching a team make it to the playoffs and celebrate with all these fans at this home stadium as it's happening. It was incredible to watch, and to see them then follow that up by, going to Houston, beating the Astros, and knocking out the team that has been the dominant force in baseball really for the last decade. I mean, since the Tigers' last playoff appearance 10 years ago, I mean, the Astros have won 2 World Series, although there's a asterisk with one of them, but they won a pennant a third time. They've been in the league championship series 7 years in a row. I mean, they're about as dominant of a postseason team as there is in baseball, and the Tigers knocked them out immediately. And they're going on the road to play their division rivals. And I kind of think that's part of why the Tigers have this extra bit of confidence. And I think that if the Royals advance against the Yankees and the Tigers advance against the Royals, I think that could come in handy, although it's an advantage that maybe Kansas City has too. But I think Detroit is going to look at this as, oh yeah, I know Cleveland's supposed to be the class of our division and they're supposed to be way better than us, but we're here now and we're ready to take care of business. We're here to beat them and take them out. And we feel that we can, and I think Detroit can too. I mean, it's certainly no guarantee that they're going to go and beat the Guardians, but it's certainly a possibility, and I think they're capable of it. I think for the game where Tarek Skubal starts, that's likely going to be a win. I don't believe that would be game one, so maybe game one in Cleveland's going to be tougher, but I think they can win this. And something that hasn't really been, something that's been missing a little bit in those first two playoff games was the offense, especially in game one. These weren't high-scoring affairs. I mean, outside of the second inning where they got 3 runs, and then game two where they got the Parker Meadows home run, the solo blast, and then that 3-run triple by Andy Ibanez, and those were all big moments. But you've seen some really key players in this offense, really nice young bats who are very talented and look like they're all capable of having these breakout moments. They haven't really been super relevant. We haven't seen that big postseason moment from Riley Green at bat. He's gotten some nice at bats, and it's not like he's done nothing, but I think we're still going to see more from him and from Carpenter and from maybe Colt Keith. I mean, there are some guys in this offense that you're waiting to see step up, and I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later. And I think the offense has the ability to take that step forward in Cleveland, and if they do, that should be the difference in the series. I think that it's going to be tough, but it's also going to be really exciting. And who knows? I mean, maybe a week from today they're advancing. Maybe they won't. We don't know for sure. But regardless, I mean, this is a team where, no one saw that, 2 months ago, nobody thought they'd have a chance of doing anything this year. And now they're one of the final 8 teams in the league right now. And that's just incredible from a team that had virtually no shot at the postseason. They're advancing. They have their first playoff win in 11 years. They have their first trip to the ALDS in 10 years, their first playoff series win in 11 years. I mean, you saw how exciting it was to see the Lions finally advance in the postseason last year for the first time in 30, plus years. And it's nice to see that even though it's been a drought for the Tigers, that it didn't get out of hand and that they are still finding some success. And it's a team with a really bright future. I think they're going to have a lot of good years ahead because they're winning because of a lot of talented young players who believe in themselves and are building confidence. And the further they go in the postseason, the further that's going to go. And I think that they're set up for years of success, but luckily we get to enjoy the moment. And I know there were some moments when I was speaking there where it almost sounded like I was kind of hedging my bet emotionally, like, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, then I can at least take this away from it. But I believe in their chances. I really think they can go and beat Cleveland. And if you're one of the few people who's been listening to my videos, then you probably noticed that I pick the Detroit teams a lot. And I know that this is a YouTube channel about Detroit sports, and I know I am a homer in that regard, but I don't always pick Detroit to win. But right now is a good time. Right now, the 2 teams playing are red hot, and I'm just going to keep picking them and rooting for them and supporting them. And I'm just so happy about where the Tigers are right now. And this incredible run is it's magic. It's that. And I hope the magic continues for a little while longer. And I just can't wait to see what this next week will bring. And I think it'll be some good things. Hopefully I'll have more to say about those good things next week. And I appreciate you tuning in. And hopefully there will be some good news to discuss next week during the show.